Okay everybody, we're going to do a demonstration of how we make fondant. You're probably familiar with fondant. It's a crystallized boiled sugar glaze. They have it here. Most pastry shops just buy fondant in a bucket, but actually it's quite easy to make. And you never know, a bucket like this actually costs a fair amount of money. And if you just need fondant every so often, you might find that it's actually more useful to be able to make it yourself. So the ingredients that are going to go into the recipe today are just sugar and water and glucose, which we find in pretty much all boiled sugar candies. We're going to include a little bit of cream of tartar, which is an acid that helps prevent over crystallizing the mixture. So even though it is a crystallized confection, fondant, we control the crystallization by including cream of tartar and then working at very specific temperatures. So let's walk through, I'll explain the recipe. Okay, like all sugar candies, we're going to start by putting our sugar into a pot and we moisten it with just enough water so that we turn the sugar mixture into what we would call a texture like wet sand. Remember that the amount of water is not actually really critical. You need enough water to thoroughly dissolve the sugar, but any excess is just going to boil away. We want to mix the sugar thoroughly. I want to start with regular granulated sugar for this recipe for the best results, not the superfine baker's sugar. Okay. So when the mixture comes to a boil, take a wet pasty brush and wash down the sides of the pot. Make sure that you don't have any unmelted grains of sugar that could cause the batch to crystallize prematurely. And we're going to add the glucose. I'm going to add the cream of tartar. Okay, while that's boiling away, I'm going to set up my station over here. We're going to cook this mixture until it reaches the softball temperature of 242 degrees Fahrenheit. Meanwhile, when it reaches that temperature, we need to stop the cooking immediately. So I'm going to set up my cold marble here by building a little box out of these stainless steel bars. This is an adjustable size box, obviously, so I can pour the syrup in here, and I can make the box smaller or larger as needed. This is the exact same technique that we're going to use to make fudge, by the way. I would say water or fondant and fudge are pretty much exactly the same process. The only difference is that fudge is going to be made with dairy products and fondant is made with water. So you can think of it as water flavored fudge. I'm going to spray it with a little bit of cooking spray. You could also wipe it down with some oil. We're going to monitor the temperature and we're going to boil it until it reaches the softball temperature of 242 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, I'm just about at the softball temperature, 242 degrees. I'm going to take the syrup off the stove and I'm going to pour it right into the prepared frame. So by boiling it to the softball temperature, we've removed a sufficient amount of moisture that the candy is going to be able to hold its shape and not stick to your teeth. Now we're just going to let this syrup cool down to 120 degrees. That'll take about 10 or 15 minutes. Okay, so my syrup is cooled down to 120 degrees. I'm going to remove the bars. Now we're familiar with the phrase, agitation promotes crystallization. If you see, this is a very clear syrup right now, and then through purposely blending it, I'm going to cause it to crystallize, turn white. This is hard work, which is why most chefs buy it. Remember that when we're tempering chocolate, we're really pre-crystallizing and the chocolate still stays fluid. It just really has the potential to crystallize. So even through the limited amount of agitating that I've already done, you can see how it's turned sort of a milky color, and that if we continue to do this, it'll get white. Even if I was to stop, the crystallization process has already begun, and so it continues on its own in the exact same way that it does when we're tempering chocolate. Right, so I've actually mixed it enough. I'm let it just sit on its own right now. And in the course of probably about 30 minutes or so, this is going to turn pure white and become quite hard across the surface. We'll actually want to let this mixture sit overnight for the fondant to sort of ripen, and then we'll store it airtight so it doesn't dry out. And then it's ready to be used for whatever the application is. So we'll think about this when we're making our millefeuille or Napoleons. When we're going to make dip our eclairs, we'll soften this up and add some melted chocolate to it. Remember, with fondant, we always have to use it the temperature of about 100 degrees, just above body temperature. You thin it with syrup to the desired consistency. That's it, fondant. Thanks.